In this video, we're going to be taking a look at some of the applications of percents, some of the places in life where you're going to see a certain percentage applied, such as in a tax or in a commission or a tip, all places that percents are used day in, day out. So the first topic, a sales tax. This is basically something that the state or a federal government or a certain town, usually it's the state and or the town, will apply a certain amount of money that the state gets for every dollar that is spent. So for example, here in Connecticut, we have a 6% sales tax. This means that the state would get 6 cents per every dollar spent on certain items. Food is generally not taxed, but a lot of times clothing and everything else generally is, okay, besides food, and sort of the necessities of life in a sense in that manner of things. So what this means is that if somebody spends $50, okay, the state will get 6 cents of every dollar. So basically what I'm going to do is multiply this by 0.06, which in this case would be $3, okay, will be the tax. So the actual item, what I spent $50 on, I would add the $3 tax, would actually cost $53. Okay, so important thing is to realize that this is just the tax then that gets added on as a result of multiplying by whatever the sales tax is. To find a tip, like if you're going out to dinner, generally we round these, okay, and deal with approximate values. In general, a tip is 15%, okay. For really good service, you might go up to 20%. Some restaurants, if you're going to dinner with a larger group, will automatically put it on the bill, okay, the tip, which usually they'll set for like about 18%, although it can vary from restaurant to restaurant. So like, let's say you go out to dinner, you spend $36.40, okay. What generally kind of round this, figure out what 10% is, which would be about $3.64. I do that by just moving it around, okay. About half of that, okay. So you could even round this up to $3.70 if you wanted, okay, if that makes it easier, okay. 5% or half of this would be $1.85. Okay, so if I would add those together, my tip should end up being about $5.55. Now, generally, what would happen is probably in looking at this, I would say, okay, 10% is $3.70. Let's say round that up to 4. Half of that would be 2. So my tip should be about $6, maybe a little bit under. Okay, because tips you generally are dealing with approximate. You want to calculate them quickly and trying to be as accurate as you possibly can. Another place we see this is commission. Commission is basically money earned. It's sort of like a tip in a sense that particularly like somebody that's trying to sell houses, somebody that's trying to sell cars, they get their salary, okay, from the company, but then they also make money off commission. Basically, they make a certain percentage of anything they sell. So, for example, if a car dealership gives their salespeople a 5% commission on each vehicle sold. Supposedly someone sells a $20,000 vehicle. If they get 5% of that, so 20,000 times 0.05 would end up giving me $1,000. So basically, somebody that's selling that $20,000 vehicle would make the $1,000. So an example, it's kind of like a tip where a waitress would make 15% on any of the food that's sold. So it's kind of the same idea, but this is just called commission because it's the money that's earned as a result of a sale. Okay. Another place we see come up is something called percent error. This is anytime we deal with something having an actual value and a measured value. What we're going to basically do is the percent error is given by the actual value minus the measured value. Okay, and this is the absolute value over the actual. Okay, and we're going to times 100. Okay, so a lot of factories will do this sort of for kind of just control. So like let's say that, somebody, has trying to measure the amount of liquid in a 12-ounce can. So let's say the actual amount is supposed to be 12 ounces. Okay. Let's say 1 out of every 1,000 cans is actually weighed to make sure that it is 12 ounces, or actually measured to make sure it is 12 ounces. Let's suppose that the measured value ends up being 11.9. Okay. What I would do is do 12 minus 11.9 and get 0.1 divided by the actual of 12 times the 100. So the percent error, if I was to do this, 0.1 divided by 12 gives me 0.0083 repeating. I then multiply by 100. So this means I have a control as 0.83 percent. Okay, this would be my percent error. Okay, is this. Okay, and that's basically all I'm going to do. Keep in mind that this should always be a positive, so I can just do a larger minus the smaller. It'll always come out okay. To do that, and just keep reminding that you're dividing by what should be the actual amount. The last sort of topic deals with the registration fee. Sometimes what it costs to register something or what it costs to use something isn't an actual set fee, but it's actually a percentage of a bill. So this acts a lot like sales tax. That, like, for example, one state charges a medium weight truck 1.5% of its value. So let's say the value is $14,500. The fee to register would be 0.015. You'll notice I'm turning it into a decimal, times the 14,500. And if I multiply this, what I should end up with in doing 0.015 times 14,500, I'm going to get $217.50, and this is the cost to register. So anyway, these are just some places where percents do creep up, so hopefully this has been helpful to you.